Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary, this time a game between Dimaga and his European brethren. His opponent will be Naama. This is part of the Dragon League series, I believe, and again wanted to take another look at a ZVT matchup, as I mentioned in my last video, featuring Idra, and this is Jimmy. I've been playing a little bit more as Zerg on the ladder, and just some custom games with friends and Redditors, and been trying to learn the Zerg race. I had been playing Protoss pretty hardcore as a kind of a mid-diamond player, and I wanted to get some more experience with the other races, starting with Zerg, just because a lot of things drew me to the Zerg race, especially its ability to read and react, the amount of scouting you have to do. So I started playing as Zerg, and I've got a number of problems, especially in the ZVT matchup. So I wanted to take a look at some of the more standard, solid Zerg players. So got this replay from Dimaga, and he has a very strong opponent in Naama here. And we're on a bit of a Zerg favored map of Scrap Station, as we see Dimaga sending that Overlord over. Pretty standard. Wants to get an idea of the gas timing for Naama, as well as some of the initial production structures that Naama is going to be going for. But again, going to try to focus mostly on Dimaga's play in this one. Not going to be quite a shoutcast, more of just an analysis of Zerg play. As we see, he's got 15 drones up and going for a fast expand. So going hatch first, actually a hatch on 16. So pretty late hatch, and it's going to get down right before the scout from Naama comes out. So it looks like Naama finished that supply depot and then sent that supply depot SUV over to scout. So actually able to throw down that hatchery on 16 about 1 or 2 drones later than most players would on a more standard map, but Scrap Station a little bit of a longer distance for those SCVs to get over. And the SCV hardly ever gets over scouting in this matchup right away. It looks like Naama may be positioning this SCV for some sort of hijinks, as he does have 1 barracks complete, a Marine coming out, and he's going to be looks like he was creating that barracks out of line of sight of that Overlord at the very start, maybe just so Dimaga was not sure what he might be going for. Now Naama getting up a bunker, and Dimaga does see this. I wonder what kind of reaction he's going to have to it. Looks like a number of drones are coming off, just 3 for now, and one of them focusing on the bunker first, the other 2 trying to focus down this SCV, preventing that bunker from finishing. We do have 1 Marine on the way for Naama as well, so he's going to try to get a few kills on these drones. If we check the production tab, it looks like 4 Lings are on their way out. This bunker is almost complete, just 5 more units of time, and with this Marine standing guard, the drones may not be able to prevent this SCV from getting that bunker complete. Now we do have these Zerglings coming down, and they're going to be able to get a decent surround on that Marine. The Marine was able to take down that one drone there, and now Dimaga is going to be able to get this expansion up and rolling. Looks like Naama transitioning into a factory, and again, Dimaga doing a nice job keeping this Overlord right by the front ramp of Naama. Naama's going to place most of his production structures by this ramp to try to wall off, so you're going to be able to get a good sight of the entire build of your Terran opponent. He's not going to be able to get a gas timing though, and I wonder if Dimaga is going to try to sack an Overlord, maybe get a little bit more information. He doesn't have too much scouting information besides the front of the base at this point. Does have an Overlord in the back. He's going to be able to get a timing on any sort of expansion which goes down. Looks like Naama getting down a command center, so going for a 1-1-1 build into a fast expand. And right now Dimaga just getting up these 2 queens at this point. Still no lair tech, working off 1 gas. He is getting up a bit of a delayed metabolic boost, so he got his economy up and rolling. Got a few Lings out before he started that gas and started that metabolic boost. And now we see a Hellion coming in for Naama. And Dimaga does have the Queen in position, so he's going to be able to take a few shots at this Hellion. But the Hellion's going to be able to do some nice focus fire damage, trying to take down a drone or 2, and Naama doing a nice job. A lot of times you'll just auto attack with that Hellion, but he did a nice job of focusing down specific drones. He was able to get 1 there, and it looks like he's going to try to soften up the number of Zerglings. And Dimaga is going to get this creep tumor down, try to spread that creep. Without speed, the Zerglings aren't going to be able to attack this Hellion and get a good surround, but now that speed has finished, they can try to get a surround, but a second Hellion coming in here. Now I imagine some more Zerglings might be on the way for Dimaga, but instead it looks like a number of Queens are coming. So I'll be interested to see. It looks like he sacked an Overlord in here, saw the tech lab on that starport, so he knows that the Banshees are going to be coming, so reacting with 2 extra Queens. They should be complete by the time the Banshees make their way over, and he has not started working on the lair tech, so he's not going to have any sort of detection. He doesn't have an evolution chamber down, so if Cloak comes with those Banshees, it could be trouble, but it looks like just the 1 Banshee coming out at this point. And Naama, sort of a minimalist, just working off this 1-1-1 build, doesn't have too much of an army, just a few Hellions, 3 Hellions to be exact, now 4 rallied to this tower, so he may try some sort of Hellion and Banshee attack at the same time. We just have 4 Queens on the field and 14 Zerglings for Dimaga. Naama going to move in here, he's going to see all these Queens, and now going to be pushing in here with 5 Hellions, and I'm not sure if he's got enough Zerglings to handle all these Hellions, but with the 4 Queens, he's going to be able to handle any sort of harassment, which Naama comes in here. Now coming with the dual harass with the Banshees and the Hellion at the same time, but all these Queens just so powerful in the early game, something Zerg players should really focus on getting at least a 3rd Queen down to spread creep, as you see Dimaga trying to spread that creep best that he can, and Naama doing a nice job denying that creep spread. Tumor goes down once more. And it looks like that one is going to stick. So these 4 Queens in the mid and late game going to be able to get some good defense going against this harassment. But now just so many Hellions, and now Banshees coming in as well. Dimaga going to have to use these Zerglings trying to get a surround on the Hellions. We don't see any sort of blue flame coming from the Hellions, so at this point just focusing on harassing his opponent while he gets his own economy up. But Dimaga has seen this with this Overlord, and we'll see what he's going for. It looks like he's got a Spire about halfway done. So I really like the fact that Dimaga is going for this this Ling Muta, or the Mutaling build. It's a build that I like to go for in ZVT, but one of the problems which I do have is getting up a decent army and a decent economy such that I'm actually ahead of my opponent, or I feel ahead, but then I throw it all away by engaging at the wrong times, especially if my opponent gets up Thors. Try to magic box, try to get a Baneling and Zerglings all converging on that ball of Thors and Marines that are stemmed up. I think any Zerg player has nightmares about that stemmed up Marine Thor ball. So be interested to see how Dimaga uses these Mutalisks, and it looks like Naama moving in here, getting a nice transfuse is Dimaga. So now 5 Queens, so using mostly Queens and Zerglings, bridging that gap between not going for any sort of tier 1.5, getting those roaches out, instead using the lots of Queens and the Zerglings to sort of get to those Mutalisks. Now we see Dimaga spreading those Overlords, so he's going to have a nice view between the 2 bases, and in any sort of air encounter or where air is favored on the map like Scrap Station, very nice to have that view. And it looks like we do have a sensor tower going up for Naama, and Dimaga doing a nice job kind of skirting that sensor tower. But Naama will know that these Mutalisks are on the way now that they are moving in here, and trying to get a little bit of scouting on the front of the base here, taking out that sensor tower. Not too many Marines. See, Naama did a lot of investment into those Hellions. Blue Flame just starting for Naama, so he's going to be able to take on those Lings as they move in with those Mutalisks in the late game with those Blue Flame Hellions. And he's got a lot of Hellions. Looks like Dimaga doing his best to do a little bit of economic damage here. So he did wait till he got a number of Mutalisks, about a row and a half, 12 Mutalisks, before he pushed out to do any sort of harassment. That's another question that a lot of Zerg players have. Should they go with their first 5 or 6 Mutalisks? Should they wait until they have that big ball of Mutalisks? How many Mutalisks do you make? It looks like at this point, Dimaga has stopped creating Mutalisks, getting out a lot of Lings, getting out Baneling speed, as well as the level 1 attack for those Mutalisks, and might be just looking for some sort of way into the base of his Terran opponent. We see a lot of missile turrets going up for Naama, so he's going to be able to get a nice defense going against those Mutalisks. Now Naama pushing in with these Hellions and these Stim Marines, as well as a Thor and a number of siege tanks. The siege tanks very well placed. They're going to be able to defend against those Zerglings and the Banelings. See Banelings moving to position, and this is the all-important decision here and timing for the Zerg player. He's going to try to engage with everything all at once. You want to roll in there with those Zerglings. First and foremost, eat a little bit of the tank fire, allow those Banelings to roll in and get to those Marines. At the same time, you've got to come in with those Mutalisks at kind of a different angle. Try to focus down the tanks or the Thors so that those Zerglings and the Mutas can just rip apart the rest of the remaining army. And it's really strong, well, it's a really important timing that you have to get used to as a Zerg player. At this point, not quite used to it myself. I tend to throw away my mid and late game armies. This is a really strong, even though it doesn't look like it's many units, a really strong ball for the Terran, especially as he adds a medevac or two. And good micro on those Marines, going to be very powerful against those Banelings. The tank's going to take out those Banelings in just a shot or two. So I'll be interested to see how a strong Zerg player like Dimaga is going to be able to handle this. If we check the income at this point, it is 53 to 58 as Naama is shutting this doorway down, not going to allow his opponent to bust through those rocks. We see the Mutalisks now moving in here, trying to take out another sensor tower, as well as a few of these harvesters. Looks like he was able to just get a harvester or two for Naama. Naama doing a nice job reacting quickly. Now trying to position these Thors to take out these Mutalisks, but the Mutalisks are just a little bit more faster than those Thors. Especially on a map like Scrap Station, Thors are quite slow. You have to really punish your opponent for going mech. You want to take out a number of SCVs, force them to waste stims on those Marines, and really defensively position those Thors, as we see Naama maybe keeping a Thor back in both these mineral lines just to play a little bit of defense. And that's going to keep the pressure off the Zerg player, and it's going to allow Dimaga to try to get up this third expansion. May even see him go for the gold or this hidden expansion, maybe the island at some point, now that he does have his opponent sort of bottled in. I definitely know this feeling as a Zerg player. You want to keep your Terran opponent in his base once he does move out, especially with this strong army which we see now. If we check the army tab, 4,500 to 5,400. But you can't really judge that just by the numbers, as the Terran army perfectly counters his Zerg opponent. He's got these Blue Flame Hellions going to be able to do a ton of damage to these Zerglings. He's got the tanks going to be able to take pot shots at those Zerglings, which do have the 1-1 upgrades, as well as those Banelings. Banelings being one-shot by those tanks. See no upgrades yet for Naama, and then the few Thors scattered in here, as well as those Marines with stim, just going to shred through all those Mutalisks. Again, Dimaga keeping his opponent on his toes, going to be taking out these destructible rocks when he does see his opponent moving out towards that third, and I'm surprised Naama did not take the opportunity to knock out that hatch, but at this point may have to keep a siege tank or two just to try to shut down and prevent Dimaga from flooding units, Zerglings, into the main or the natural. As we see Dimaga doing a nice job picking off any stray units that he can, trying to keep map control, keep his opponent on his toes. Naama preparing another command center, so he's going to try to expand here. And again, at this point in the game, that Terran ball with all these basically counter units to the Zerg army is going to be very powerful. Dimaga doing a nice job trying to hide these Zerglings and these Banelings. Doesn't want his opponent to have too much information. If we check Naama's site, doesn't have too much information about the base of his opponent, doesn't know much about what kind of army or where the army is positioned. So Dimaga making sure he's taking out the towers here before he moves his army into position to defend this expansion. And I was right, it looks like he will be taking this gold. So now that he does have his opponent kind of bottled up in his own base, he's going to do his best to expand. The Terran about to be on 3 bases, and you definitely want to be at least a base, maybe even 2 in the late game ahead of a Terran opponent, as their army and their income with those mules just really vastly dwarfs the Zerg army and economy. If we check the harvester count, it's 48 to 47, so pretty late on the harvesters for the number of bases and how late we are into the game. About 20 minutes into this game, we see 6 queens out on the field for Dimaga. Not as nice creep spread as I'd like to see. Did a nice job spreading it at least to the center of this bridge between the 2 bases, but would really like to see a number of active tumors along the bottom here so that he could really force his opponent to try to engage on that creep. In the ZVT matchup, it's important that you have that creep, your Zerglings and your Banelings moving so much faster on the creep. See Naama perhaps trying to get a little bit of information about his opponent's army, but Dimaga going to shut that down, and with that creep he's going to see those scouts coming. So at this point Naama really has no clue how many Banelings, how many Zerglings are on the field for his opponent. May have to waste a scan or two here, and going to try to get his third into position. And now we see the Zerglings all coming in here at the same time. Let's see if we get the Mutalisks coming in from the back, trying to take out these tanks. As we see the Banelings doing their best to get to these Marines. Naama doing a nice job trying to split these Marines so not much damage is taken by those Banelings, trying to focus down those Banelings. Very nice positioning on these tanks. Those tanks are not going to be susceptible to those Mutalisks with all these missile turrets there. And Naama in a very strong position. If we check the army tab, it is 3,600 to just 75 for Dimaga. But on the way, Dimaga has 26 Mutalisks and 14 Zerglings. But Naama at least going to be taking this this third here. And Dimaga is going to have to do his best to get all the Zerglings and Mutalisks in one group and attack at the same time. A lot of players make the mistake of streaming in reinforcements, and at some points that's a smart idea, but against this number of units you really have to get your whole army together and attack all at once, as we see more and more Lings coming out for Dimaga. Now Naama going to be punishing the Yellow Zerg here, taking out the majority of his economy, as Dimaga will just be on one mining base at this point, just that natural, doing his best to save a few of those drones, and Naama taking out the gold here. And now we see all these Mutalisks coming in, and he's going to try to take out as many of these SCVs as possible. See 46 SCVs. Instead, it looks like he's going to be going for these tanks and these missile turrets. He recognized that's a very strong position for the Terran player that's really going to shut down any sort of Ling run by, and really going to restrict the number of Lings and Banelings he's going to be able to get in to engage these Marines. And now taking advantage of the map, the fact that there's this high ground and it's going to be difficult for the Terran to try to catch these Mutalisks, taking as much free damage as he can. He's going to be trying to kill as many SCVs and preventing those turrets from being put up. All the while, he is trying to macro up his army once again. We see 2,300 to 3,800. See more Banelings and more Zerglings on the way. This planetary fortress is going to be very difficult to engage, as we see the Mutalisks doing their best to take out any sort of Hellions or tanks. You could come in from behind here, try to pick off a tank. Looks like he's going to be doing maybe just that. So again, those Mutalisks are just very mobile at this point, and he's going to try to work down the Terran army best that he can until he's got a very even army, and then may roll in there with those Lings and Banelings. But again, the planetary fortress and those siege tanks going to make it for a very difficult position to engage. He's going to try to get up his third once again. Like I mentioned, the income, Dimaga basically on no income at this point. So we see Naama moving forward here, going to try to shut down this income entirely. Going to do his best to also micro away from these Banelings, as the Banelings trying to close the distance on these Marines. Nice splits coming here for Naama. So nice micro there by Naama, and Dimaga pulling back there. But again, the income disparity at this point is about 1,100 to 800 for Dimaga. And Naama has all these mules. He's got about 1.5 mining bases, got a few patches here at the natural. If we check the army tab, it is 2,600 to 1,600. Just saw a lot of transfuses go off, so it looks like these Mutalisks were healed up. And mid and late game, a lot of players forget about the Queens, the fact that they have a lot of banked up energy. Your macro can't be perfect. You're never going to get those injects perfectly. You're always going to have a few extra Queens. So if you have a ball of Mutalisks like this, or Broodlords, or even Roaches or Hydras, you can use those Queens, heal up those units, or even bring a Queen or two on the offensive, get some battle healing going on, and it can really make a huge difference. So it looks like Dimaga moving these Queens into position, going to try to get this creep spread over towards his opponent. And now Naama doing a nice job trying to get firmly entrenched here, placing down those missile turrets before the creep spreads too far. Stimming here with his Marines, going to try to focus down Queen after Queen. So Dimaga's going to have to pull back here, maybe get a transfuse or two on the Queen. And Naama taking that free damage, and he's going to pull back once he does see those Banelings. He's got siege tanks in position, so these Banelings aren't going to be able to do too much damage. A lot of Banelings going down there to those siege tanks, not doing too much damage to those Marines. And Naama in a very solid position, so be interested to see how Dimaga may be able to come back from this. A nice Baneling there taking down a number of Marines. But he's really going to have to come in here with Banelings, Zerglings, and the Mutalisks all at once. Really try to take out the siege tanks, flood the Thors and those Marines with those Zerglings, so that the Banelings can close the distance. As you see, the Banelings just being wrecked by those siege tanks at this point. See 3 upgrades for those siege tanks. They're going to be doing 44 damage to those light units. And now Naama just doing his best to push in here. Do have an Infestor on the field, getting a fungal growth out on a number of Marines. Now it looks like Naama may be pushing forward with the siege, perhaps unsieging a few of these tanks. No, he's just going to push forward bit by bit here, taking out that hatchery, and Dimaga getting up one extra hatchery over here could perhaps take this island at this point as well. He's got a greater spire on the way, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to support this. He's got a lot of banked up gas, but he's going to have to get out those corruptors before he can get on any sort of broodlords. Broodlords could be the answer, but at this point Naama going to be pushing in here. It's going to be quite a bit of time before he can get those broodlords up and running. Now Naama stimming up, chasing after all these drones, going to try to take out as many drones as he can. Down to 26 drones is Dimaga, and now once this hatchery goes down, imagine Dimaga going to be in a very bad position, as the Terran player controls both of the possible mining bases for him at this point, as well as that gold. And not really sure what Dimaga is going to be able to do here, as we see Naama now pulling back. So I like this. He doesn't want to have the creep be an advantage for his opponent. He was able to take down both those hatcheries. As we see the Mutalisk trying to do a little bit of damage to the production structures of Naama, but at this point might be a little bit too late. He really needs to go for the economy, needs to make his way into the SCV line, but just so many turrets up for Naama at this point. And now going to be trying to chase down the Mutalisk ball with a number of Thors, perhaps keeping them back on the defensive. At this point with those upgrades, Thor is doing 4 attacks of 18 against those Mutalisks, and not many Mutalisks on the field, just 10 at this point. 4,900 compared to the 2,500. If we check the unit counting station, a lot of broodlords just came in, 4 in fact. Not sure that's going to be enough, but if he gets good positioning here over the airspace, the Terran might not be able to take him down. Those Thors doing the bonus damage to light only, not as much damage done to those heavy broodlords with that armor. So Dimaga going to have to make sure that he does not get caught out of position here, losing those Mutalisks to these Thors. Does not want to engage here, needs to pull back, losing a majority of those Mutalisks. So it looks like just 3 left. So losing 6 or 7 Mutalisks there. Now these slow broodlords are going to try to move into position, take out a few missile turrets. Broodlords also not only have that 1 armor, but they have the 9.5 range, so very long range. And the Thor's trying to push into position here, but I think at this point Dimaga's just lost so much of his army. I can't imagine he's going to be able to come back. Doesn't have any mining going on. If we check the income, down to 0. If we check the resources, down to just 46 resources. So at some point it's going to be off the GG here. If we see on the way, we have a few Vikings as a good reaction for Naama to those broodlords. See moving in this queen, and again, this is nice transfuses. You can be able to get a lot of bang for your buck from those broodlords if you can heal them up. They have that 1 armor and the 225 health, so that's a pretty decent size health pool that you can transfuse into. Trying to retreat here and get another transfuse off, but now that these Vikings are out on the field, I imagine it's going to be a GG from Dimaga there. So did not quite see the micro and basically that triple prong attack I was talking about with the Zerglings, the Banelings, and the Mutalisks all at once, taking out that Terran army. We saw Naama with some nice nice marine splits there, really trying to limit the amount of damage those Banelings could do. I think that Dimaga could have macroed up a little bit faster, tried to get on an extra base, stayed a base ahead of his opponent. Really like to see a little bit more creep spread, something I try to focus on in my games. It really makes those Banelings and the Zerglings much faster, and I think the game was basically won by the positioning of Naama there on the high ground between his natural and his third. He had those tanks and the missile turrets there. Dimaga tried to come in from behind with those Mutalisks, was able to take down a number of tanks, but the tanks on the high ground were able to rip apart the Zerglings and the Banelings before they could make it in and take down all those Marines for Naama. So pretty good game here. There's a few more games in this series I may take a look at and post on my channel. Again, trying something a little bit different, doing more of a hardcore analysis, or not quite hardcore, on Zerg play in the ZVT matchup. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. As always, if you're looking for more of this type of StarCraft 2 action, check out my channel Matron StarCraft at youtube.com. Thanks for watching.